Hi, I'm Lila Alderman from SeeClickFix. My teammates here tonight are Daniel Aguilar, Melanie Mazanik, Umesh Gupta, and Crystal Williams-Brown. And I did not bring the clicker with me. All right, so our mission with SeeClickFix is to provide safe and accessible trip planning on pedestrian ways for people with limited mobility. Why does that matter? So last week I met with Susan Goodman. She sits on the steering committee for Durham Participatory Budgeting, and she was telling me how whenever she wants to go someplace, she has to go with an aide or with a family member, and she has a few limited amounts of routes that she's been able to research with family members. But in order to go somewhere new, if somebody's not with her, she's pretty much trapped in her own house. And a tool like Google Maps does not solve this problem because, for one thing, it has limited sidewalk data. And the sidewalk data that it does have does not contain critical components for somebody with limited accessibility, like curb cuts and steepness. And so using a tool like this can often be more harmful than helpful. And this is a huge problem because 54.5 million people in the US have some form of assistive device or cannot walk more than a quarter of a mile. That equates to 1 in 6 Americans who are dealing with these problems on a daily basis. So what type of obstructions am I talking about here? We have short-term obstacles like a fallen tree branch that comes down after a storm, or building construction that can shut down sidewalks for months at a time. Long-term obstacles include things like a lack of curb cuts, or broken, uneven, overgrown sidewalks. And then finally, we have permanent obstacles like steep hills, which can be a problem going both uphill and downhill. As part of our research, we found a few existing projects that had sought to address these problems. The first is SeeClickFix, which is based in Chicago. It allows users to upload pictures of issues that they find that are geolocated, and these issues are then also uploaded to the city's 311 system. So this does a great job of addressing those short-term obstacles. Access Map is a project based in Seattle that does provide trip routing and planning services and allows you to set things like maximum steepness or requiring curb cuts on your route. So this addresses those long-term and permanent obstacles. And the great news is that these are both completely open source projects. So this is a screenshot of SeeClickFix, and you can see a user has uploaded an image of this awful broken sidewalk here to alert other users in the area to not go this way. And this is a screenshot of Access Map in Seattle showing its trip routing services. All of the sidewalks in this map are color-coded by steepness so that you have an idea of how difficult it's going to be to get to where you want to go. And then it has all of those accessibility functionality features on the side. So what are we trying to accomplish with SeeClickFix? Well, we don't really want to reinvent the wheel, share accessibility map. So our basic idea is to just combine the functionality of these two features so that we're covering short-term, long-term, and permanent obstacles. So since our team formed at Civic Camp, we've been able to make a good amount of progress on this. We've been able to localize SeeClickFix to Raleigh so that it can show the city of Raleigh and show issues that have been added. Been able to localize Access Map and to add geolocation feature for North Carolina so that it understands where you are, even if you're not in Seattle. One of the big things that we've been working on is partnering with Access Map. So we started by meeting with Nick Bolton, who is the developer of Access Map in Seattle. And he's very interested in collaborating with us and getting this amazing project rolled out to other cities. So after talking with him, we decided that the most useful and efficient path forward is to use OpenStreetMap, which is an open source mapping tool. So our main challenge is a data one. So OpenStreetMap currently lacks a lot of sidewalk data for much of North Carolina. And so this is really the crux of the project, is getting this data into OpenStreetMap. Two main ways of doing that. The first is to import GIS sidewalk data from municipal open data sources. And the second way is to host mapathons, where community adds this information all together. So mapathons are great because they raise awareness of this mobility issue while simultaneously crowdsourcing the solution to the problem. And the other great thing is that no coding or mapping experience is required at all in order to participate. And the other thing is that it increases exposure to open source mapping, which is something not a lot of people know about. And once you've been trained on how to do it, you can do this from anywhere at any time. And last week, we hosted our very first Mapathon at Code for Durham, where we focused on training people how to do this and letting them take this home and work on it at their leisure. OpenStreetMap data also has a few additional benefits beyond simply integrating with AccessMap and SeeClickFix. User-reported issues can be used to update the map in OpenStreetMap and can also be sent to City 311 so that the city can be alerted to problems. It also integrates with any other existing open source projects, because OpenStreetMap, being open source, has tons of amazing open source projects. Wheelmap is one of them, which is shown here. This project deals with flagging accessibility within buildings, so it's a perfect complement to what we're trying to do. And the sidewalk data helps all pedestrians and bikers, regardless of your mobility. It's great to have this information. So our next steps for this project are improving the tools and adding more local sidewalk data. So we're working to update the APIs and add as much local sidewalk data as possible. And so anything for spreading across North Carolina and going beyond, really the key is having that sidewalk data in OpenStreetMap. And really that's pulling open data from the cities and adding our own open data. And we're also working to make this process easier as it moves to other cities by creating documentation, adding a call to action to the AccessMap interface so that places with limited sidewalk data can have a resource to go and add this data themselves, and by developing easy-to-use training materials to help people map sidewalks and also host mapathons themselves. And that's it.
So one of the things I would be wondering about, since you showed 3 different apps, 3 different platforms, how are you going to integrate? I mean, are you going to pick feet? How are you going to integrate the 3 applications? Are you going to recreate the functionality? Or are you going to build your own on the same?
So we have 2 applications.
Okay.
We have AccessMap and SeeClickFix.
Okay, what was the wheel map?
Wheelmap is just
another thing just happened to be out there.
if they wanted to work with us, maybe. It's not part of the scope of this project. But in answer to your question, our plan is to take AccessMap, since that has the bulk of the functionality that we want, and to just take that and add in the 311 integration and the user-submitted issues into that.
For the mapathons, so how do those work? Briefly.
Well, I can train you. But really, I developed my own training materials, and the point of the training is to first get people comfortable with open street mapping technology. And it's really easy. If you can draw a line on a computer, you can map a sidewalk. And then getting them familiar with the best practices for mapping sidewalk data. So you tag a sidewalk this particular way, and that makes it talk with AccessMap more clearly.
Okay, so how do you vet the data? So as someone that may be in a wheelchair, an incline may seem steeper than someone that is mapping something that has never been in a wheelchair, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So how do you make sure that the data is representative of the actual experience of the users? Yeah,
so there's a lot of answers to that question. Right off the bat, the steepness information comes from USGS elevation data so that it's super accurate. Second, whenever you input data into OpenStreetMap, there's a really amazing little checkbox that says, could you have somebody who actually knows what they're doing look at this before it gets uploaded? Which is also great. And then the third answer is, this is all completely open source. Absolutely anybody at any time can go into this and update it and say, I don't think that's accurate. There's not a curb cut there, and fix it.
So how much testing have you done with the people that would actually use this to find out if it's within their parameters for what is usable to them? So like accessibility and, can they actually manage the interface? And you're like, so like if I'm thinking about myself when I'm planning a route, I go on Google Maps and I just fill it out and it's all real easy, or, do it on my phone, whatever. But obviously there's a deep level of thought that's going into their day-to-day interactions with the community that they're living in. How does this fit into that life cycle, and how do you make it so that it's it's easy for them to access and improve the quality of their life.
Right. So,
That was it.